It's a conversation that concerns literally everyone who has a job right now. As they say, last, everybody will eat that breakfast of retirement. And yes, we're joined by the CEO of Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria, Mr. Oguche Aguda, making a comeback in less than 2 months, I believe. Good morning, Mr. Aguda. Welcome.
Weeks.
6 weeks, I believe.
Less than a month.
Less than a month. See, they're counting. Because they're also looking at their pensions and they're thinking, this is a conversation we must have. It's good to have you on the program. You know, the protests was like a rude wake-up for a lot of people. Like, wait a minute. The police are protesting, let me go check by it. And they just realized that, okay, I don't really understand this thing. I get alerts, but I don't quite understand it. So we thought, let us break it down for people so they understand how this whole pension administration works, the contributory scheme. What do I get to put in? What does my employer put in? What do I get at the end of the day, which is a major issue.
Yes.
So you have prepared a very, very comprehensive explainer. So we're going to start from 2003.
Yes.
Where we transitioned into this new administration in that sense.
Yes.
What exactly was the problem then with the whole, what's it called now, the
DB scheme, the defined benefit
scheme? Yeah, the defined benefit scheme. Yeah. And why did we find ourselves in this contributory pension scheme?
Yeah, so at that time, the government had pension liabilities of more than 2 trillion naira. So what it meant is that it had staff who are working, and a number of them are retiring and needed to pay them. So under the previous scheme, it was defined benefits, meaning that your benefit was defined. If you work for 35 years, this is how much you're meant to be paid, and then the government is meant to take out of its allocation to pay you. And the government was owing because it didn't have money. At that time, the pension liability was about 2 trillion naira, and the government's budget in the year 2003 was about 2.7 billion for running...
1 trillion?
Yeah, 2.7 billion, actually.
Oh, for just for...
Yes, for that year.
Okay, not the total budget.
For that year.
Okay, I get it.
So you can see the gap. It didn't have enough money, and I'm just using the police as a proxy. 20 years ago, the police force were about 190,000. Now they're about 380,000, which is double. So what that means is that the government has to look for money to pay all the pensioners. So essentially, it was unsustainable, which is why the government said, how do we move to a sustainable model? And there were various committees set up, which was chaired by Fola Adiola at the time. They went to different countries and they came up with something contributory, which is what led to the Pension Reform Act in 2004, the contributory pension scheme, because it was unsustainable. Again, the government had liabilities, workers to pay, and the government didn't have enough money. So that birthed the contributory pension scheme.
Fantastic. So we know how we got here. But the real issue now is how it is calculated in that sense. Because you talked about the challenge then, there wasn't enough money. But now it looks like at least we have some measure of more money.
Yes.
So let's talk about how CPS works now. How does this contributory pension scheme work?
Okay, so what happens is that when you are working, your employer takes 8% of your basic housing and transport and puts it in your pension pot. But your employer also takes 10% of that. It bears the cost. Your employer bears the cost. So 18% of your basic transport and housing is sent to your retirement savings account every month, you know, by law. So that's 18%
of your
basic transport and housing.
So if you're earning 200,000 naira, 18% of what in 200,000 naira?
So not 18% of 200,000. So if you're earning 200,000 naira in a month, that's your full salary. But you know, as salary is computed, there are a number of allowances. So the minimum is basic, housing, and transport. And depending on the organization you work for, some maybe that might be 50% of the 200,000. So depending on how your pay structure works. But 8% of that amount is your pensionable amount. So every month is taken from your salary, and then your employer also 10%, not from your salary, from their own funds, takes 10% of that basic transport and housing and sends it to your pension fund administrator every month.
Can you say that again?
Sends it to your pension fund administrator every month.
So 8% from me?
From you, yes.
8%.
Then
10%.
10% from the employer.
So that's like 18% in that sense.
Yes.
So now, does this money grow? One, how secure and transparent is it? Because I've had a lot of people raise eyebrows about, wait a minute, this money that I'm getting is not increasing. It's the same thing. I've not even gotten alert all this while. So speak to us about the growth. Is there potential for growth? And
no, it does grow. It does grow. And I try to do a dummy statement. If you see a dummy statement, anybody, if you check your statements, the PFAs are meant to send you your statements every quarter. So they send it to your email address. So if you don't get the statements, engage them. Give them your email address, and then send it to you. And you see in the statements, it will show you your net contribution. So how much have you been contributing every month? And what is the quantum of that? It will show you gain or losses. That is the gain that you have made. Out of all those contributions, 18% that is coming every month, it goes to the pension funds, and they are investing it. So it shows you how much you've gained or lost.
So let's walk through this typical pension statement together.
On the screen, right?
Yes. I don't know why the name is Kayode. I feel targeted, but the name is Kayode Akeju.
I use a different surname, actually.
Which is fair, right?
Yes.
So Kayode Akeju.
Yes.
The employer here, I see what you did, channels, radio, employer address, and all of that. Yes. So this is from July 2005 to July 2025.
On the screen, so
right.
See it.
So you see a statement summary. Maybe you can walk us through what we have.
Okay, so what it says is the net RSA is retirement savings account. So that 18% that I spoke about, every month your employer pays in. So everything, the cumulative is the 5.5 million you see on the screen. That is what your employer has been sending through. Then number of voluntary contributions. So we encourage people. So your employer is paying 10%, you are paying 8%. You can decide as an individual to say, okay, let me increase my contributions from 8% to 20% to 15% to 10%. That's voluntary. It's not mandatory. But because you want to grow your money, so you said, I'll do that. So for this person here that we've used, out of all the voluntary contributions he's made, 620,000 naira, right? So the next column is, what's your gain or loss since inception? And this is 8.7 million.
In this case, is that a gain or a loss?
It's a gain. It's a gain. So because it's not in brackets, if it's in brackets, it's a loss.
Okay.
So it's a gain, meaning that you, as an individual, and your employer, you've contributed 5.5 million, and it has gained 8.7 million. So it's more than double what you contributed.
As a result of the
investment activities of the pension funds. And the honest truth is that anybody who has been contributing consistently since 2005, when the Pension Reform Act started, you will see that your gain is more than double your contributions, because over time they've grown the money, right? And when you add everything together, so the last portion is withdrawal. So perhaps you lost your job, perhaps you resigned, perhaps you wanted to do business, and you collected 25% of the amount at the time, and then maybe you got another job. So you sum everything up. So what will be your RSA balance is the 14.6, and that's how much you get at retirement, 14.6 million. That is what is your retirement savings account balance at retirement.
So because of the investment of the pension administrator, your money grows.
It does.
So they add their own percentage from the profits that they
make in the various investments.
The various investments.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So speak to us now. Current value is 14 million naira.
Yes.
We're still going to go back to the average, maybe 200,000 or 160,000 earner. But I want us to quickly use this Kayode Akeju case study. So how much do you get monthly now as monthly payouts? Do you get a lump sum first?
Yes.
And then you get monthly payouts. What would it look like for this Kayode Akeju?
Okay, so for this Kayode guy,
Akeju.
So I think the first thing is, when you retire, especially for public sector workers, a year before you retire, they ask you to verify just to make sure that you are the individual. But what I want people to get is that retirement planning is your responsibility. So you now need to be prepping, when am I retiring, know the dates, engaging your PFA, and even before that, begin to engage them. So they'll sit down with you. I did have a retirement planner sit down with you. What is it that you want to get out of retirement? You can decide to collect a lump sum, right?
Of the 14 million?
Of the 14 million naira.
What's the highest you can get?
Up to 50%.
So you can get 7.3 million.
You can get, depending on a number of things, right? So,
such as?
What was your last salary when you retired. So maybe you are collecting 500,000 when you retired. So the pension system is designed to say, you know, when you are retired, ideally you don't have as much expenses when you are working. So whatever you have left should be able to cover at least 50% of your last pay when you are working, up to a number of years. So there are tables that you compute how long is someone going to live, you know, based on historical data and all of that. So we expect Coyote to live till 85, 90.
120.
120.
So
you want to live that long?
So based on that, you know, between 60 and 120, that's another 60 years. You know, so how much do we need to ensure that Coyote gets that 50% of his last salary every month? So we'll walk back, and there are models that you use. But Coyote can also elect to say, you know what, I've got a house, my kids are finished schooling. Ideally, that's what should happen in those retirement years, and is that normally many people don't have that. And you say, I don't need a lump sum, right? I don't need that lump sum. I don't need 7 million because I don't need that money now. What am I going to use it for? So I tell the PFA, don't give me the lump sum, but I would rather have 80% of what I was earning when I was working. So I can collect even 100% depending on, so it's now dependent on you. So sometimes people say, well, I collected 3 million. You can elect not to collect the lump sum, and you can get higher payouts every month. So it's dependent on that. I think one of the challenges, we've been stuck in between the previous system and the new system. So the previous system, you know, the civil service, which we inherited from the British, they wanted you to stay for long, and they promise you if you work for 35 years, they'll give you a gratuity. So people feel, oh, with this new system, if I work for 35 years, I need to get a gratuity. It doesn't typically work like that, because what is happening is it is what is inside there that you get. Even though there are moves to, let's say, let's bring back gratuity, but that's a different conversation. So what you now need to see is, how much do I want to get when I retire? Those voluntary contributions, you can elect to say, okay, they are taking 8% of my salary. I can take it to 10%, 15%, because the more you put inside, the more you get when you retire.
So when you say gratuity is another conversation, is it no longer a component of the entirety of the pension, or is no longer separate? Let's understand it.
No. So the Pension Reform Act doesn't outlaw gratuity. Gratuity is from your employer. So your employer can decide to say, okay, you've worked for X number of years, I'll give you this amount as gratuity. That's the employer's prerogative. And some employers do that. And we encourage employers to do that.
Is it compulsory under the law? Because there are some people who have worked for over 10 years in a particular organization and they didn't get a gratuity.
It is not compulsory. It's not compulsory. What is compulsory is every month your employer must pay 10%. Because we need to get to the point where it's contributing and it's funded. So your employer could promise you a gratuity, right, in the previous case, and when you retire, he might not have money, or sometimes he has gone bust, right? So in order to caution against things like that, so even if your employer goes bust or your employer leaves Nigeria, as we saw some multinationals leave, your retirement savings account is still there.
All right. So let's come. I'm looking at some of the slides you prepared as far as what even brought us here, the police pension itself. I would like you to speak to it based on the one I'm just looking at, the police pension reality. Maybe you take it from there, because that has generated loads of controversy. We had the military people protesting the other day, just not too long after the police protest led by Showore, who is now at loggerheads with the police. It's just a very funny situation. So walk us through this police part of the pension, so that every policeman or intending policeman can get to understand, maybe once and for all, what exactly we're dealing with here, so that you manage expectations.
Okay, so based on online data, you know, we see that, you know, a Nigerian police constable receives approximately maybe about 84,000 a month. So let's say that's how much you receive. So 8% of your basic transport and housing every month is put in your pension pot. And the federal government, which is your employer, is meant to contribute 10%. So on this case, we see that over 10 years, this individual has contributed 3.4 million based on those contributions, right? And over 10 years, if the return is 10% compounded annually, he would have made 2.6 million. So the increase in his retirement savings account would have been 2.6, and at the end, it's about 6 million naira. So that's over 10 years. We're just trying to do a simulation. And in that case, the PFA and the investment has grown by 75% over 10 years. If it's constant, he hasn't gotten a salary increase, it's just on that 160,000 a month, which we try to use for a model. But in the next slide, I show the same police officer, the same individual who are receiving 160,000 a month, but maybe in year 2, he gets promoted or he gets a salary increase. For 4 years, he doesn't get promoted, and in year 6, he gets promoted or he gets salary increase. And then year 8, salary increase, year 10, salary increase. So what is just going to say is that when your salary increases, when you are promoted, of course, your contributions improve and your retirement savings account balance will improve, which is why the last time I was here and in most of my conversations, I said it's actually an issue of the welfare of the police. And we stand with the police, and there's been moves around that about the welfare. So if your salary is constant and it's low, even though it's been invested and it grows, at the end, your pension pot will be low. So what needs to happen is salary needs to increase, there needs to be promotion, the career advancement, and that's what will cause a higher pension when people retire.
So I'm glad you've done this for the police. In fact, you did another one for, let's imagine your salary increases over the years. But the police is a big part of this conversation.
Yes.
But it's also a minute part of this conversation, because if you look at the workforce in Nigeria in that sense, there are millions more people, and the police is just a percentage. Yes, the police is a big part of it, but there are other people who raise questions, lots of questions.
Fair enough.
Questions around, one, you're forced to wait till you're 60 plus years to access it. And they wonder, this value that you speak of will be eroded in future. So why can't I get a lump sum? Even while I'm working, let me start a career, let me start something that I know that would also generate money for me, rather than wait till I'm 60 plus. God knows what inflation will be there. God knows what the naira to dollar will be there. So imagine you still have 20 million.
Yes.
But your 20 million when you're 60 plus is equivalent to, God forbid, 1 million naira.
Yeah,
so why is that a challenge? Because it's their money in that sense. Why can't you give them a lump sum and say, take this, start a career if they want to, if they choose to?
So pension is meant to cater for people when they stop working, when they're not as active, right? When you are working, there are other things you can do. So what I always tell people, right? So every month, 8% of your basic transport and housing is taken for your pensions, not 8% of your full salary. Because if you do a math, it could actually be maybe 3% of your full salary. If you do that math, it's taken every month. So what happens to the other 97% or 95%? If you say you want to do business in 20 years, you can actually begin to save on your own, right? You get what I'm saying? I don't know whether you get what I'm saying.
So I'm saving in 2 places.
Yeah, because pension is one aspect. If you want to grow wealth, that's also another conversation, right? And if you want to say, when I'm retired, this is what I want to do. So this is statutory, and this is the minimum. You can also decide to do other things. That's number one. Number two is that when you retire, we've seen people say, okay, give me all the money, it's my money. But in this other slide I showed, the individual, for instance, he contributed 5.5 million, but the PFAs grew it to 8, and they grew it and they added 8-point-something million. So they more than doubled it.
But it was his money they used to grow it.
Yes.
It's his seed. The person provided his seed.
In the case of the police, which is a big part of this conversation, we've seen the numbers coming through about the paltry sum they were getting after retirement. Did that growing effect also, was it evidence in what they collected?
Yes, it was.
So it
could have been worse.
Yes, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. So because the salaries were low, and because some of them, they had not been on the contributory pension scheme for a while. So there was a cutoff period. So it started in 2005, really, in terms of people who started contributing. So if you retired in 2010, 2011, meaning you had maybe 5 or 6 years to have contributed. So the amount in your RSA wasn't much because the contributions were not much, even though it had grown. So what needed to happen was that the government would have owed you, which is the accrued rights. And sometimes the government had not paid. For a number of years, the government had not paid. But this administration, has approved that. So there's going to be a huge chunk coming into their RSA accounts, and we'll see increases in those payments now.
Subsequently?
Yes, we'll see increases in those payments now. But let me land on Kade's issue. So, you know, in your 60s and 70s, when you don't have enough money, you are now a drain on society, right? So research has shown people that collect huge amounts of money in their old age, most of that is frittered away. So what typically happens is that, you know, you get huge amounts of money, maybe you want to do a business, and the argument is, you know, the businesses you didn't do between 30 and 60, you want to do it now, but if that money is now frittered away or something goes bad, you are 65 and you don't have any money. People will say, okay, it's my choice. But the society is meant to function whereby at least there's a minimum. So don't forget, this pension is a minimum. You can actually decide to say, I have other retirement plans, but this is a minimum of your salary. And if you do the computation, like I said, between 3 and 5% that is taken. So you can decide to do additional voluntary contributions. You can decide to do other retirement plans on your own.
I just want everybody to be clear on these issues, but
Yes.
for the police now, because this thing seems like it's socialist in nature, because you cannot go, everybody drop the money, let's share it for ourselves. But the police, what are the options available for them?
Okay.
Because it's something that we must speak to. You would hear police officers tell you point blank that, see, these are the issues that bedevil us. In fact, matter of fact, I just recently had the same conversation. So what are the options available? And I think that's on 16. Right?
Yes. No, so maybe we should go to first the difference between the contributory pension scheme and the police pension board.
We have just a minute plus.
A minute. Right. So under the contributory pension scheme, for instance, if you lose your job or you leave your job, you still get your pensions. But where the police are looking to go to, you must have worked for at least 10 years before you get access to pensions, right? And it's based on the government's POS, Federation account. And this morning I was just reading that aviation workers want to go on strike, healthcare workers want to go on strike, university workers. So everybody is trying to get into that, and it's not sustainable. That's the honest truth. So the options for the police, right? There's been engagements with the police in terms of some of these things, maybe introducing a gratuity, the government increasing its minimum of 10%, because when the government does do that, it now means that the money in their RSA is higher, and when the investment returns, so those are options. And then, of course, the welfare. Once salary increases, their own pensions will increase.
So those are the options for them?
Yes, those are some of the options. There are still other options,
okay,
which they've been discussing.
Right.
Not at liberty to discuss that now, but there's been engagements.
Okay, we have to thank you so much, Mr. Ogucha. Good to see you, Penna. Thank you for your time. More questions are coming in, I must tell you, but we have to anchor here. Thank you very much.